giving me this opportunity to just come up here, share my testimony with all you guys. I'm just going to basically talk about what I learned during my first year in the NBA with the Warriors, and then hopefully you guys will learn something. So I grew up in CCIC, called Chinese Church of Christ. It's in Mountain View. There you go. I attended church every week as a little kid growing up, but I didn't really do a good job of living it out. At that time, it didn't really make sense to me. I was a class clown, I was a bully, I was all those things. I remember when I was a little kid, we had a nanny, and me and my brothers, all we would do was just pull pranks on her all day. So one day we went to a restaurant and we got a bunch of toothpicks. So we were like, okay, what am I gonna do with these toothpicks? So we took all these toothpicks, we stuck them in a couch in her favorite seat, like sticking straight up, while she was in the shower. So she, took a shower, took a nap, which I didn't even anticipate her doing. And then 2 hours later, I got bored, and I was like, I'm gonna go watch TV. So I walk over to the couch, I sit down, right on the same toothpicks that I had laid down. And I checked and realized that my butt was bleeding. And that was the type of kid that I was growing up. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I just was the worst kid. I would go to Sunday school, I would make my Sunday school teachers cry. They would give me prizes, I would throw them on the ground, and I was just, a mess. Then I got into youth group my ninth grade year. I went to youth group at CCIC. I got baptized, and that's when everything started to make sense. That's when I started to realize, this is what fellowship is like, this is what love is all about, this is what, this is Christian fellowship. So I went on to go to school. I went to Harvard University, and I really struggled my first year and a half there because I didn't really have a community. I didn't have a fellowship. I just showed up, and I was just basically immersed into the basketball community, basketball team, and so I didn't have any accountability. Then I got plugged into Asian American Christian Fellowship, and the last 2 years in college, I was part of a small group that me and my friends led. And that's when my faith started to grow again. And then this past summer, I signed with the Warriors, and this is the main point of my testimony. I remember I had signed in July, and right after that, I felt like I was on top of the world. I had so much media, I had like thousands of Facebook friend requests. I was like, wow, this is so cool. All these random people are friending me on Facebook. I remember I went to Taiwan to play in Yao Ming's charity game, and I got to meet Yao, who, as you guys know, is very tall. I actually don't even go up to his shoulder. So it's pretty crazy. He's pretty tall. And so I just remember my life changed overnight. I was like literally walking around Palo Alto one day, not a big deal, and then the next day, everyone was coming up to me congratulating me. And for me, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is like, I can use this, I can live this life, this is a lot of fun. And I thought, okay, I went to Harvard, I struggled, and I had a strong foundation. I figured, I'm ready for the challenges that the NBA has to offer. I feel like my faith is strong enough. But I was humbled very, very quickly. Within, a couple months during training camp, I was already, during preseason games, I was playing behind players who weren't even on the team. Like, they bring in different guys to help practice. I was behind those guys in terms of the depth chart. Then, as the season went on, I would only play when we were down 20 points or up 20 points, and most of the time we were down 20 points. I started to struggle, I started to lose confidence. I remember my coaches, trying to encourage me, and then, but at that point, I just didn't feel like I had my swagger on the court. So in December, I was sent down to the D-League. I remember my first D-League game, I had maybe like 10 points, and right after that game, we took a 9-hour bus ride to Bakersfield. And on that bus ride, I'll tell you, that was the longest 9 hours of my life, because I was so, I put so much stress on myself, I put so much pressure on myself. I remember, the cut deadline, January, I think 21st, is like the date that they can cut players. If you make it past that date, then you're on the team, on the roster for the rest of the year. I was worried about the cut deadline. I was worried about my performance. I was worried about how much would the D-League coach play me. What happens if I come down here, I play bad, and there's other players that play better than me. How could I face my family? How could I face my agent, my friends, if I go back and I do a horrible job? And I just remember putting all this pressure on myself. And I couldn't sleep at all on the bus. And December 29, 2010, I keep a diary. I know that's kind of girly, but I occasionally write in my diary. I wrote, "This is probably the closest to depression I've been. I lack confidence on the court. I'm not having fun playing basketball anymore. I hate being in the D-League and I want to rejoin the Warriors. I feel embarrassed and like a failure." Then on January 21st, 2011, I wrote in my diary, I actually wrote, "I wish I had never signed with the Warriors." And so at that time, I know a lot of you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, but that's really the amount of pressure and the amount of stress that I put on myself, to the point where I really lost my joy, my passion, and my purpose in basketball. And I remember at that time, none of the paychecks, the car, the fame, none of the NBA lifestyle, none of that stuff, my dream job, my dream life, none of that meant anything to me anymore. Because I was in a really tough situation. Basketball had consumed my time, it consumed my energy, it consumed all my thoughts, it consumed my happiness. My happiness was dependent on how well I played. If I didn't play well, I wasn't happy. And at that point, I started to realize, this is becoming an idol for me. It's becoming everything. It's becoming so important. It's my number one priority in my life. And so that's when I realized I need to start trusting in God more. And I always had the head knowledge of knowing that, but it was tougher to implement it into my life. And so that's when I started to realize I need to trust God more. And for those of you guys who really know my story top to bottom, you would understand that for me to not trust God is crazy, because his fingerprints are all over my story from top to bottom. I'm going to read you guys a list of things that had to happen for me to get into the NBA, and none of these things have anything to do with me, or anything to do with me controlling the situation. My dad moved to America in 1977, turned on the TV, and fell in love with basketball. I was born into a family where basketball was just part of my life. I was 5 years old playing basketball. I got the genes that allowed me to be 6'3", 200 pounds. Both my parents are 5'6". They both weigh about 110 pounds. My brothers both weigh about 130 to 140 pounds. How did I become 6'3", 200 pounds? That's not something that I can control. I got the genes to be the most competitive person in the family. I was notorious for throwing controllers when I lost in video games growing up, but that turned out to be a blessing. I'm not encouraging you guys to throw controllers. I grew up with two brothers who both loved basketball and pushed me really hard. I found an AAU coach and a high school coach who both fell in love with my game, fell in love with how I played, and really took me under their wing to develop me. This is huge, because both my brothers never had that opportunity. They never had a coach who really took them under their wing and just became kind of their mentor and their best friend for 6 years. I broke my ankle my junior year, which turned out to be a turning point in my life, because that's when I started to realize I need to stop taking everything for granted. And then coming out of high school, I was recruited by Harvard and Brown. I was dying to go to Stanford. God closed that door, thankfully, to me. And as a result, I went to Harvard. If I had gone to Stanford, I can promise you I would not have been able to make it to the NBA, because I would have developed as a player. I wouldn't have been able to play as much early on, and so it was huge for me to go to a smaller school and develop. After my freshman year at Harvard, they hired Coach Amaker, who completely transformed the entire program. Harvard basketball has never had a coach like Coach Amaker, and for it to happen during my sophomore year was, again, something I couldn't control. I was able to find a Christian agent who loves God, believes in me, and was able to give me spiritual advice as I struggled throughout the season. On draft night, Donnie Nelson, who's the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, who are about to win the NBA championship. I'm not rooting for them, because I could have had a ring if I had signed them. So don't get me twisted, but he called me right before the draft was over, and he said, I want to offer you a spot on my summer league team. That was the only team that had offered me a spot on the summer league team. If that had never happened, I would never had a chance. I got hurt during my pre-draft workouts. I hurt my Achilles, and literally the morning of the start of Summer League, I was cleared to play. That morning that training camp started, I was cleared to play and I was healthy enough to play. Summer League went on, we played 5 games. There's 30 teams in the NBA. We played 5 games, we played 5 teams. One of them happened to be the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards happened to have had the #1 pick in the draft and drafted John Wall. That game, Roddy Dubois, who was the starting point guard, hurt his ankle. That's something I couldn't control. As a result, I got more minutes. And then I happened to play my best quarter of basketball in the 4th quarter of that game. And that's my path to the NBA. And if you look back at each of those things, you would understand that's not something that I can directly control. I can't directly say, I'm going to be the most competitive, or I'm going to be the tallest, or I'm going to weigh the most, or I'm going to find this coach. All these people, all these things came into my life, and they are all blessings from God. And as I look back, I realized these are His fingerprints all over my story. So back to my first year while I was in the D League, even though things weren't going well, I found a way to kind of lose hope, lose trust in God. And I tried to remind myself of my story and how I got there, but the way I live my life is very, very well put by this verse. 1 Corinthians 9:24-25. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath. The prize that I was playing for at that time was a perishable wreath. I was playing for great games, great stats, getting recalled to the Warriors, making it past the trade deadline, getting the next year of my contract, living up to everyone's expectations. I was playing for those things. I was playing for myself. I was playing for my glory. And I remember I had a phone conversation with a pastor that I was pretty close with, and he said, when you go to the D League, this would be a great opportunity for you. I want you to spend an hour every day with God. I said, what? He was like, I want you to spend an hour every day with God. I was like, wow, I have never done that, but I decided that's something I need to do. And so as I was there, I came across Philippians 3:14. It says, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. So this verse talks about an upward prize, a heavenly prize. And this prize is the blessings and rewards that we get when we get to heaven. It's the eternal fellowship that we can have with Jesus Christ. And so our true prize, our true reward, what we're striving for, what I would learn I needed to strive for, was something in heaven and not on earth. And so I read this book called Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. I don't know if you guys have read it, but he says, God created us to live with a single passion, to joyfully display His supreme excellence in all spheres of life. When Paul wrote in Philippians to press on for an upward prize, what he was saying, what he was doing was living for that, and that made his life meaningful. And I realized I had to learn to do the same. I had to learn to stop chasing the perishable prizes of this earth. I had to stop chasing personal glory. I had to learn how to give my best effort unto God and just trust Him with the results. I had to learn to have enough faith to trust in His grace, to trust in His sovereign and perfect plan. I had to submit my will, I had to submit my desires, I had to submit my dreams. I had to give it all up to God and just say, look, I'm going to give you my best effort. I'm going to go out on the court, I'm going to play every day for you, and I'm going to let you take care of the rest. And this is something that I still struggle with every day, to this day. Even before getting up here, I was telling my cousin Alan, I was like, dude, I'm kind of nervous. And he's like, dude, just give it up to God. And so that's something that I still struggle with every day. As the season went on, I got recalled. I got sent down and recalled 3 times in the D League. After the 3rd time, I got up to the Warriors and we played the Grizzlies. And I remember I had like 8 points in 10 minutes or something like that. And I was like really happy. I was like, oh, this is like all worth it. This is what I was working for. And I remember that was the first end of a back-to-back. We got a game the next night. And the next day I was like, oh, that's not that cool because we're going to play the Rockets tonight. And if I still think about the Grizzlies, I'm going to go out there and Aaron Brooks is going to score 20 on me. And so my point is, playing for, great stats and everything is nice, but that satisfaction, that happiness is only from game to game. It's very temporary. And so my example of that is LeBron James. I mean, this guy is one of the best players to ever play the game. He has a couple bad games in the finals, and all of a sudden, everyone's talking about how he's quitting and how he hasn't showed up. And if I live like that, if I play for that, if I play for what other people say about me, if I play for the expectations of others, then my happiness is going to fluctuate with how I play in the games. And so I'm here to tell you, I have what many of you guys look at me and you say, oh, he has a perfect life, he has a dream life, he has a dream job. He gets to play in the NBA, he gets to play basketball for a living, everything associated with the NBA lifestyle. But what I'm here to tell you is that that stuff brings temporary happiness, but it doesn't bring eternal joy. I remember I was on, we take a private plane from city to city for every game. I remember when I first got on that plane, there was M&Ms, Skittles, Starburst, there were burgers, chicken wings, pizza. I was like, wow. I remember I ate everything the plane had to offer. Everything. And all my teammates were looking at me and they're like, why are you eating so much? I'm like, why aren't you eating that much? And they were like, were you a starving kid growing up? You never had food? I was like, no, but this is a private plane. Like, this is awesome. And then I remember towards the end of the season, we got on this one plane, and normally right by everyone's chair, there's a little power outlet. So you can plug in your phone charger, your computer charger. And I remember I looked down and I was like, dude, there's no power outlet here. And then my teammates started to realize that, and then we started complaining. They're like, man, this plane is horrible. Where's the power outlet? And then I remember at that point, I had to stop myself because I was like, dude, are you serious? Like, that's what you're gonna complain about, is not having a power outlet on a private plane going to your next game. And that's what happiness is like for me, is it's really cool, but it fades. It doesn't last. And those things, playing in the NBA, all those things are obviously fun, and I love it, and I love my life. But that's not gonna give me joy for the rest of my life. It's not gonna give me purpose for the rest of my life. And so, that's basically what I wanted to share with you guys. And my application to you guys is, what does that mean for you? If you're a non-believer, my challenge for you is to really think about what you're living for. What is your prize? Are you playing for a perishable wreath, or are you playing for a heavenly prize? What do you think about most every day when you wake up? It could be SATs, college, it could be money, a good job, a promotion, cars, video games. It could be pornography, it could be girls. If you're a girl, it could be attention, it could be beauty, it could be all these different things. I don't know what everyone pursues, but you have to take a look at yourself and really ask yourself, what is my prize? What am I living life for? And hopefully my story can be an encouragement to you, and my advice isn't for you guys to all just convert right away. My only encouragement to you guys is just to get to know God. Try to get to know God. I don't care if that's opening your Bible, reading a chapter a day. It could be talking to a Christian friend who's been trying to evangelize for you for a while. It could be talking to a pastor. It could be attending church. It could be any of those things, but my encouragement is that you wouldn't leave, or you wouldn't go through this next week without at least doing one thing to try to get to know God a little bit more, to try to understand that He has salvation waiting for you. He has purpose in life waiting for you. He has eternal joy, eternal peace waiting for you. And if you're a believer, I would ask you the same question. What is your prize? What are you living for? How can you play the game of life for the heavenly prize? And the first thing for me when I ask myself that question is I need to realize God has to be my number one priority. If He's not my number one priority, I have an idol in my life. And so for me, I don't know how much time you guys spend with God, but if you don't spend any time with Him daily, try to spend 10 minutes with Him. If you spend 10 minutes, try to get 15. If you do 15, try to do 30. Start evangelizing to a non-believing friend that you've had your whole life that you've never really mustered up the courage to share the gospel with. Give your best effort in school, in your job, or whatever you're doing, and let God control the results. I remember when I was a freshman in freshman in high school, it was a similar thing. I couldn't sleep because I was so worried about my grades. I was like, I have to get straight A's. I never got straight A's once in high school, but I thought I could, and I would worry about it. And it just made me miserable because I just had to realize I need to give my best effort and let God take care of the rest. And for me, He did, and He showed me a different path, and that's what He can do for you. I would also encourage you guys to forgive those who wronged you. Put others above yourself. even if you don't make a lot of money, you don't make any at all, maybe considering tithing or offering or donating to a good charity or a Christian organization. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned and really struggled with is to show the people around me that I love them, because one of the best things about being a Christian is that you show love and you are a light to people around you. And so for me, I remember I was like, one day I was like, I'm going to tell my mom and my dad that I love them. And I don't know if that sounds weird to you guys, but for me, I was like sweating thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what they're going to say. So I was like, hey mom, I love you. She's like, what? I was like, I love you. I was like, I love you. And she's like, oh, like I love you too. And for me, I had never told my mom I loved her. And it was really hard for me. And I told my little brother the same thing the other day, and he laughed at me. But at least he knows that I love him. And so I just encourage you guys, if you're a believer, just to spend time with God and to really go out of your way to show people that you love them, even the people that you have a hard time loving. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'm just thankful that I was able to share my testimony with you.
All right, so praise the Lord for that, for being transparent.